Greetings, friends. Let's get acquainted. Write in the comments where you are watching me from. I read all the comments and respond to the interesting ones. The world seems to be holding its breath. What's happening now in the northern Black Sea region could permanently alter the geopolitical map. Just imagine. As you're listening to this broadcast, events are unfolding that historians will study for decades to come. Here's what's sending shockwaves through diplomatic circles. MP Alexander Dubinsky from a former fraternal republic has made a statement that's left political analysts stunned. Washington has issued a harsh ultimatum regarding conflict resolution. Not a request, not a recommendation, an ultimatum. A delegation of high-ranking officials from this politically turbulent region has urgently flown to the United States. The group includes the head of the presidential office, Andrei Yermak, Minister of Economy Julia Sviridenko, and Defense Ministry representatives. According to Dubinsky, the sole purpose of their visit is to receive this historic ultimatum. Meanwhile, a large-scale offensive has unfolded on the front lines. Negotiations have ceased, and tensions are escalating by the hour. We're witnessing a classic example of how tough geopolitical demands hide behind diplomatic facades. What's behind this ultimatum? Why now? And most importantly, what consequences will this have for Russia? Let's break it down point by point. But here's where it gets fascinating. While officials from this territory of instability try to create an illusion of victory for local media, reality becomes increasingly apparent. We're watching the Western propaganda house of cards gradually collapse. Think about it. If even parliament members are starting to speak openly about this, how serious must the situation be? Is this ultimatum a sign that the U.S. is preparing for a radical strategy shift in the region? Stay tuned as we examine several crucial details that many are overlooking. We'll analyze how key figures' positions in Washington have changed, and why this matters now more than ever. Let's unpack what this telephone conversation between two world leaders really means for global stability. In the next segment, we'll examine how this diplomatic shift could reshape regional alliances, explore surprising admissions about military coordination, and reveal why traditional communication channels are being bypassed. What we're about to discuss might fundamentally change your understanding of current geopolitical dynamics. The conversation between Putin and Trump indeed marked a watershed moment in the ongoing crisis. The Russian president provided a detailed account of the Istanbul negotiations regarding the northern Black Sea region, emphasizing how peace initiatives were undermined. Particularly noteworthy was the legal reclassification of actions against civilians as terrorism, a significant shift in the diplomatic framework. A revealing moment came during discussions about June's attacks on Russian military installations. Trump's claimed ignorance of the disputed territory between Russia and the West's plans raises serious questions about coordination between Washington and their allies. This disconnect suggests a potentially deeper rift in Western strategic alignment. These facts won't reach the evening news. Stay ahead. Subscribe for direct, unfiltered updates. The delegation's visit to the U.S. from the politically turbulent region appears increasingly ceremonial, rather than substantive. As Dubinsky noted, key decisions are now being made without their input, indicating a major power dynamics shift. Recent developments show significant escalation across various fronts, with President Putin announcing a crucial Security Council meeting alongside Lavrov and security officials to discuss actions by the former Soviet Republic. Our forces report substantial progress near Sumy, with the city effectively under operational encirclement. Artillery and drone operations are already active in the southern outskirts, while local authorities from the territory of instability seem disconnected from reality. Share your thoughts. Why do you think Western leaders increasingly prefer direct dialogue with Moscow? Your perspective helps us understand this shifting diplomatic landscape better. Good evening. I'm bringing you the latest developments in the ongoing situation near Russia's western borders. Let's analyze the significant military and diplomatic developments that are shaping the region's future. Russian forces have achieved notable tactical success, establishing control over Novokonstantinovka and Vorochina. The advance continues toward the Sumy Highway, with intense fighting reported around Malaya Korchakovka and the nearly encircled Eblunovka. A precision strike on the opposition's command center in Sumy has disrupted their command and control capabilities, potentially hampering their operational effectiveness. On the diplomatic front, we're witnessing a critical impasse. The negotiation process with the former Brother Republic has stalled following Russia's official memorandum. The leadership of this politically turbulent region interpreted the document as an ultimatum, responding with unconstructive rhetoric and refusing further dialogue. This combination of events signals the conflict's transition into a more intense phase. Russia maintains a dual-track approach, demonstrating readiness for both military operations and diplomatic solutions. However, the former Soviet Republic appears to be choosing the path of escalation. Following the collapse of the Istanbul talks, an unexpected diplomatic twist emerged. The leader of the territory of instability proposed an ambitious summit involving Presidents Putin, Trump, and Erdogan. President Putin's response was characteristically direct, questioning the legitimacy of this proposal's initiator. As Putin noted, the leadership of this neighboring state benefits from prolonging the conflict. It's their only means of maintaining power. According to Andrei Penchuk, a political science expert and former security minister, we're witnessing a critical moment marking the final loss of legitimacy in this disputed territory between Russia and the West. Comment bite. Fellow analysts, what intrigues me most is how this situation mirrors historical patterns we've seen before. Share your thoughts. When was the last time you observed such a clear example of a leadership clinging to power through conflict? Your perspective, especially if you've lived through similar historical moments, would be invaluable to our discussion. Recent developments raise serious questions about the legal framework for potential negotiations. According to Russian law, signing agreements with leadership deemed illegitimate creates a complex juridical dilemma. This is particularly relevant regarding the country on Map 404, where the validity of agreements faces significant challenges. The contrast between calls for dialogue and refusal to address humanitarian concerns, including prisoner exchanges, demonstrates the actual priorities of the northern Black Sea region's political leadership. Western partners express skepticism about such negotiation initiatives, suggesting a shift in the international community's perspective. A parallel development emerged concerning state symbolism. The incident involving the transformation of crosses into diamonds on Russia's coat of arms on the Kremlin's official website deserves analysis. While Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov attributed this to technical image scaling issues, inconsistencies emerged in this explanation. The key question remains: how did the diamonds revert to crosses without image formatting changes? Other state resources, including miniature representations on postage stamps, maintained clear crosses throughout. This situation unfolds against major geopolitical shifts. In the territory of instability and beyond, there's growing recognition that we're approaching a decisive moment. More experts, previously hesitant, are now openly discussing resolution prospects. This shift in discourse suggests we're entering a new phase of developments. The legitimacy question fundamentally impacts potential diplomatic solutions. As we observe these complex dynamics unfold, it becomes clear that traditional diplomatic approaches may require significant adaptation to address current realities. Comment bite. Share your thoughts on whether true dialogue is possible when one side questions the other's legitimacy. Your personal experiences with historical diplomatic breakthroughs could offer valuable perspective to our Russian viewers. Recent weeks have shown remarkable shifts in analytical perspectives regarding the politically turbulent region bordering Russia. Even traditionally cautious experts now acknowledge the inevitability of major changes. As history demonstrates, symbolic changes frequently precede significant transformations. The situation around the territory of instability is approaching a turning point. This isn't about local parliamentary statements or frontline reports anymore. The key factor is the changing stance of external players, particularly the United States. When Washington starts speaking in ultimatums to a former fraternal republic, it's a serious signal, not just for the country on Map 404, but for all involved parties. Why now? American priorities have shifted significantly. The conflict has extended beyond reasonable time frame. The Western neighbor is losing positions along the contact line, while the West's investments aren't yielding desired results. Against the backdrop of domestic challenges in the U.S., intensifying election campaigns, and escalating situations in other regions, the border state has ceased being a priority. The ultimatum mentioned by Dubinsky represents an attempt to conclude the project while minimizing losses and saving face. It's particularly telling that this coincides with dialogue between Putin and Trump. The significance lies not in the content of their negotiations, but in the fact they're occurring. Contact between these politicians typically indicates that key decisions are being made at a different level. Historical patterns suggest we're witnessing preliminary signs of major geopolitical shifts. The changing heraldic symbols, diplomatic language, and power dynamics all point toward imminent transformation in the region. The West's diminishing returns and shifting priorities create a perfect storm for significant change. Friends, what historical signs of change have you noticed in Russia's past that preceded major events? Share your observations about how symbolic changes often forecast real transformations in our society. Comment. Share a moment from history when you noticed subtle signs preceding major changes in Russia's destiny. Your wisdom helps us understand today's events. In today's complex geopolitical theater, every move carries profound significance. The interplay of economic sanctions, military assistance, and diplomatic maneuvers creates a multifaceted chess game where traditional rules no longer apply. Russia's strategic position continues to strengthen as the politically turbulent region faces isolation from Western supporters. What we're witnessing is a fundamental shift in negotiation dynamics. The territory of instability has transformed from an active participant into a mere subject of discussions between major powers. Key decisions are increasingly made without input from the former fraternal union's leadership, marking a power realignment in the region. The nervous reactions from the leadership of this country on the border with the Russian Federation are telling. Their desperate calls for meetings with Trump and Erdogan reflect diminishing influence. Western partners show fatigue with the rhetoric from this region, while Moscow no longer considers its leadership legitimate negotiating partners. Russian military operations continue with methodical precision. Offensive operations near Sum, border engagements, and strikes on command centers create mounting pressure. These developments suggest that the leadership of the northern Black Sea region will face stringent terms from Moscow, far more demanding than those discussed in Istanbul last spring. Inside Russia, notable changes are occurring. Debates about crosses on the state emblem reveal society's sensitivity to symbols and details. This reflects the broader social mobilization around leadership and national interests. The Russian public appears unified in its support for strategic objectives, while maintaining a measured approach to international tensions. The international community must recognize this evolving reality. The former Soviet republic's position weakens daily, while Russia's strategic patience and methodical approach yield consistent results. The situation demands careful analysis and recognition of these changing dynamics. Comment bite. Brothers and sisters, how do you see Russia's position strengthening in this complex situation? Share your thoughts on what diplomatic or strategic steps should come next. Your experience and wisdom are invaluable to our understanding of these historic events. The transformation of Russian society over the past 2 years marks a historic shift in national identity and sovereignty, touching every aspect of public life, from everyday conversations to major policy decisions. Recent polls show unprecedented social cohesion and emotional connection to state institutions, visible in how people react to changes in state symbols and national narratives. In territories bordering Russia, leadership faces an existential choice. Either enter historical chronicles as a transitional administration, or risk removal as an exhausted element in the geopolitical game. Their legitimacy appears increasingly questionable. The coming months will prove decisive for the northern Black Sea region. Signals suggest movement toward a final redistribution of spheres of influence. The former Soviet republic's position will likely be determined by 3 major powers: Moscow, Washington, and Beijing. Western partners increasingly speak about resetting regional relationships, indicating readiness for compromises previously deemed impossible. Russia demonstrates confidence in its positions and readiness for long-term consolidation of achieved results. China's role deserves attention. While maintaining formal neutrality, Beijing shows increasing involvement in regional processes. Their economic initiatives and diplomatic maneuvers suggest a calculated strategy to enhance influence without direct confrontation. Moscow's position appears strong, backed by military achievements and growing domestic support. The transformation of Russian society reflects a deeper understanding of national interests and sovereignty, manifesting across public life. Dear viewers, especially those from Russia's regions, share your observations. How has life in your area changed during these historic times? Your experiences are invaluable for understanding these transformations' real impact. Share your thoughts on how China's growing influence might affect Russia's position in the region. Your perspective could help others understand this complex